Hello, friends, and thanks for tuning in to the Bandwich Tapes. I'm your old pal, Brad Williams, and I'm glad that you're joining me for another episode of the show. I've had a few people that have asked me, why is it called the Bandwich Tapes? So I guess a little inside baseball here. When musicians and bands play gigs, typically corporate gigs, wedding gigs, the meal that was provided for the musicians typically is not as good as the meal that's provided for the guests. And it's usually a little box lunch with a sandwich and some chips and a cookie, like you're on an elementary school field trip or something like that. So the term bandwich, I've heard it as long as I've been playing, so I just thought it would be a fun little play on words for the title of this podcast. So there you go, the Bandwich Tapes. So today, I'm excited for you to hear my interview with my friend and incredible musician, Mr. Steve Ward. I met Steve back in 2011 on a gig that was put together for a wedding. We talk about the origin of that gig and how we met. And ever since that day, he and I have just been like best pals. He's just one of my best friends in the whole world, and I just have so much respect for him in every way. I aspire to be him as a musician. I aspire to be him as a human being, as a sound engineer. He's the total package, and I'm really fortunate to be his buddy. And I learned a lot having this conversation with him about his early life, traveling, living different places because his dad was in the military, and how he picked up a lot of different music along the way during that time of his life, and then how he came to be a professional musician. And I just love him to death. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you're enjoying listening to the podcast. Tell everyone about it. Share it with your friends and your neighbors. And a lot of really cool episodes coming in the near future. So here's my interview with my pal, Mr. Steve Ward.
Now you swear and kick and beg that you're not a gambling man, and you find you're back in Vegas with a handle in your hand. Your black cards can make you money, so you hide them when you're table. Here you go back, Jack, do it again. Wheels turning round and round. You go back, Jack, do it again. Girl, you go back, Jack, do it again. Wheels turning round and round. You go back, Jack, do it again.
Well, good afternoon, Steve Ward. How are you, man?
Good afternoon, my friend Brad Williams. I'm doing well.
I appreciate you taking some time and just let me tell the people of the world everything there is to know about you and all of the great things you've done. I was going to say right out of the gate that I always tell people that my dream when I was learning to play music, I wanted to play with James Taylor, and then I met you, and I knew that was the closest that I would ever get.
That's the closest you were going to come.
Get to playing with James Taylor was playing with you, because you were my guitar and vocal hero, and just love the way you play, and anyone that's ever heard you knows they feel the same way that I do. So
well,
I'm just
it's crazy that you say that, but I was thinking today, do you know that, it was I'm sure that we'll get into this, but our history was, of course, through Tommy Dodd. But do you know that it wouldn't have happened the way that it happened without a band that I don't know their name canceling a gig at the last minute?
That's right. Yeah, I don't know who that was.
I don't know who it was. One of these days, I think I'll ask and write him a letter of thanks or something. But
I know
it was a total accident. I'm sure we would have met.
It
was the circumstances And it was the moment. In that moment, there was something.
Yeah.
It was just crazy how it happened.
Well, let's just talk. You know what? We'll go in reverse.
We can get to that.
Yeah. Let's. I can't wait to talk about it because I actually went back. Thankfully, I've put most of my gigs on my calendar. I actually went back and found the date of that gig.
Oh my goodness! Seriously?
Before we talked today, yeah, I was curious.
It's going to be way before I thought it was.
It was longer for me than I thought it was. It's really interesting. So yeah, it's crazy.
Okay.
So, well, let's start at the beginning. So, you live in Georgia, but I know you weren't born in Georgia, right? Where were you born?
I was born in Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado.
The Mile High City.
You are the son of someone in the military, right? Your dad. Yeah,
he was a career man in the military,
right?
Stationed at Lowry Air Force Base, and that's where he met my mother.
Really?
At Calvary Temple Church, where they both attended. Yep.
That's really, and I know. What was your dad's name?
Gilbert James Ward, not Tiberius.
and what is your sweet mom's name?
Joyce, Vivian Joyce, but she dropped the Vivian long time ago.
Okay, all right. And I know you have a brother as well.
Kevin. And he lives in Spokane, Washington.
Yeah, is he younger or older?
4 years younger.
4 years younger, okay.
But much wiser.
Well, I don't know.
He's been through a lot more than I have, believe me.
So I know, so you were born in Denver. How long did you live there?
Oh, 9 months. I mean, yeah, we were gone. Basically, except for two places, we were 9 months at a time everywhere. I don't know why that worked out in the military, but it did. But we got to stay 3 years in Biloxi, Mississippi, and 3 years in Grand Forks, North Dakota. So,
so similar.
There's the luck of the draw. Yeah.
So, how old were you when those things were happening?
I was in first, second, and third grade in Grand Forks, but we lived in a little town way outside of Grand Forks where you had to walk to school and everything, and the whole walking to school in 30 degree below wintertime.
My.
Yeah, it was a great little town, and it's still there. I mean, I have looked up the town, and it hasn't changed much.
Really?
Yeah.
So you lived there? You lived in Biloxi. Was that after there? Was that after?
Biloxi was after there. Was junior high, and I started high school there. But we lived in. We were back and forth to Denver a couple of times. My sister was born at Fort Worth, Texas, and then we were back to Denver. Then we lived in Riverside, California for 9 months, and then back to Denver when my dad actually went overseas during the Vietnam War. He wasn't in Vietnam; he was in Thailand. And then we did Biloxi. Oh, there was a stint in Sayre, Oklahoma. We got all the good gigs, believe me. He wasn't a pilot.
Okay.
If you're a pilot, you got the good gigs. Never overseas and never any of the good places. But Biloxi twice, though.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
How old were you when you all landed in? Because you landed in San Antonio at some point, right?
Yeah, that was my second year of high school.
Okay.
So I don't know how old you are in second year of high school.
Yeah.
But I was there. But that's where I stayed the longest. Because he retired there, and then after he retired, he went to work for Hewlett Packard like the next week. After 22 years in the military, he went and had 25 years with Hewlett Packard. But I stayed in San Antonio when they moved to Atlanta. So
okay.
I was there about 9 or 10 years in San Antonio. Finished high school, went to a little bit of college. I love San Antonio.
Yeah. I've been in a lot of cities in Texas, but I have not been to San Antonio, but I've heard.
Best food in Texas.
That's what I've heard. So, musical family? Did you have a musical family?
No. My mother was musical. She played the violin when she was young, and her sister played the piano. But she ended up playing. She ended up not liking the violin, but she had a music appreciation. She was my music. That got me in touch with music. My mother did. My dad was very outgoing and very comfortable in front of people, but couldn't carry a tune if it saved his life, even when he was the song leader at church.
Wow, really?
Yeah. They had him be the song leader for a while because he was so enthusiastic, but it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. We'd hear him practice all week for it, and it was worse than when they talk about kids and their violins. It was terrible.
It's like,
but he got everybody participating.
It's like that scene from the Andy Griffith Show where they keep asking Barney to sing softer and softer. That's just, when you started saying it, that's the first thing that I thought of.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he led with his face, right? And
absolutely led with his face and tried to keep time, but he didn't know what he was doing. I remember one time he asked me, he said, now, choir, what do they do? This and this and this and this. And it's like, he ended up just doing this. But it worked. They loved him. They loved him doing it.
Oh, that's
And we
great.
just turned the mic off, doing no big deal.
That's great. Well, how old were you when you kind of got were bit by the bug of
I was 7 years old. I was bit a few months before that. Saw Elvis. My grandmother was an Elvis fan. She liked two singers primarily, Elvis and Jim Nabors.
Okay.
Go figure. But I saw Elvis on TV, and he had the guitar, and he was singing, and little did I know he couldn't play the guitar that well. But I said, that's what I want to do. And my grandmother said, well, I'll get you a guitar. And so I ended up getting a guitar for my 7th birthday. And the deal was that my parents were okay with me getting the guitar for my grandmother if I took lessons for a year. And so I agreed, but I got my green stamp guitar that she bought at Sears with green stamps. See if anybody remembers that. And I started taking lessons immediately and passed up the year, took lessons for 11 years.
Wow.
From tons of different teachers because we moved everywhere. And so I got a little bit of flavor from a bunch of different teachers. I did the whole Mel Bay thing and where you had to go to lessons every week and write out the music on the staff to where, what note it was and where it was on the guitar. Different teachers just taught a bunch of different things.
Wow, man. And what a great education you got.
Oh, it was fabulous.
That was afforded to you by having all these different places where you were learning to do it.
And the guitar teacher in Riverside, California, didn't even concentrate so much on the guitar as performing and accompanying, teaching me how to accompany myself, which is a whole different thing than just playing guitar parts.
Wow, what a great thing.
That's where the singing kind of took off, was in Riverside. When I was 6th grade, 7th grade.
I mean, I know we've heard, and I'm sure anyone that listens to this has heard someone that you can tell that they either focus a lot on the guitar playing of their trade or the singing part of their trade, and the other is going to suffer as a result. And what a great education you got right out of the gate on how to do that.
Out of the gate. I wish I remembered her name. Because I'd come home from lessons every week and they, what'd you learn on the guitar? Well, not much. And I don't know that I don't know that I really understood a lot of it, but it sunk in.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that many times, about the difference between getting up in front of people and playing songs and performing. And it took years and years for things to set in, but that's where it started. And I credit her a whole lot.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just thinking about what all you were getting to do. I mean, you got to focus on the music theory part of it. You got to focus on the rhythm part of it, the melody, the harmony, the rhythm. I mean, the three legs.
Dynamics.
The dynamics of it. All of the things that I think you probably do better than anyone I know. That you play with such great dynamics that as someone who has been on the stage with you or has heard you or has sung while you were playing, it's just really inspiring to hear someone kind of take you on a journey throughout a song just by making the dynamics move around. It's really something. Yeah, that's great.
Well, I think that's what they instilled in me, and through a couple of other people. And then when I was on the road, through the leader of the band I was on the road with, it's different than. I've never been the guy who sat in my room and picked out exact guitar parts off a record or wanted to learn lead stuff, and it became something. The guitar was a vehicle to let me sing, but that opens up a whole world of things that I don't know. It's a lot of things that don't get noticed until you're doing it badly, and then it gets noticed.
No, that's it. That's great. No, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Do you consider yourself a guitar player that sings or a singer that plays guitar?
Oh, a singer that plays guitar. Yeah, and the funny thing is, though, that's the thing I'm way more. It's much more smoke and mirrors, the singing part. I'm much more confident about the guitar parts, but I'm a singer. So
well, you're a great singer. And
well,
when did the vocal part of it come into play?
Oh, that was in choir, high school, junior high choir. I was in choir in elementary school, and then junior high and high school, and in college. That's what I went, was a music thing with the choir in Trinity in San Antonio, and learned all the legit ways of doing it, and then what not to do as soon as I was out of school. I did band in high school, middle school, high school, and I didn't do chorus until I was required to do it in college. But I've looked back on it and wish that I had, mostly from the discipline part of it, and just learning how to breathe correctly and learning how to phrase and enunciate. That is something that is worth anyone to sing in a church choir, sing in a school choir, any opportunity you can to sing with other people where your ensemble is important. That's some valuable stuff to make yourself better as a singer. Well, it's an ensemble of listening to the people around you and learning how to listen to the people on the other end of the stage.
Yeah.
And blend with them. I mean, it's like a whole lot of things about school. There's a whole lot of things about that you learn how to learn, and it teaches you a bunch of lessons that maybe you don't remember until forever later.
Well, I would imagine that. I mean, you have an incredible studio. You may be as good of a live sound engineer as anyone I've ever worked with. And I would imagine that there's a whole lot of that you just learn by osmosis, by standing in the middle of an ensemble, learning to balance yourself next to the people around.
Oh, yeah. Well, and listening to records and not really listening to the singer. I don't know what I became a sound man in my early bands and stuff kind of out of necessity. But I found it, and I think it had a lot to do with that whole accompanying thing. Because I think and I know that we've spoken about this, but one of the things that the teacher instilled in me was that you're not just required to play the guitar part. You've got to hear what the drums are doing. You've got to hear what the bass is doing. You've got to hear what the piano's doing. You've got to hear what the strings are doing. And to make an effective accompaniment, you've got to pull all that together. So it's more than just the guitar part, even when you're just playing guitar and singing. And I think that's where that got started. And then it just went to the sound thing. I'm just fascinated by the records and songs and all that. I'm fascinated by it. I love it.
How old were you when you started paying attention to the production of records you were listening to?
Early high school.
Yeah.
16, 17.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, what a great time to be having kind of the blueprint laid
Yeah.
out
Well,
for
I
you.
mean, I remember setting up just a makeshift stereo in my room for my record, and I had guitar speakers. I had speakers like piled up and all hooked together, so the I could hear everything as much as I possibly could, and I would sit and play Doobie Brothers albums and Chicago albums, and just pick out the parts, just listen to them. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just fascinated by it, and I wanted to hear. Oh, I can really hear that snare drum and hear the sound of the snare drum, and I could tell. It's like, okay, he's on a stage. No, he's in a room. No, he's in that kind of stuff. I just started listening to that stuff a long time ago.
Oh man, that's great.
Yeah.
So when you were coming up, learning how to play and sing, and let's talk about some of your heroes, some of your influences. Who were some of the guitar players that you were really zeroing in on?
Well, I mean, my main guy was always Glenn Campbell, and it was because he was that kind of a performer. Like I said, all this stuff, I couldn't put a finger on it then, but it just appealed to me. He could just sing and play the guitar, and
were you?
I picked up. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Steve. Go ahead. At that point, were you hip to what all he was doing on the West Coast as a session player, or was this just as a...
No,
yeah.
Yeah, I knew him from the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour when he took over for the Smothers Brothers. Never heard of him before that. Yeah, it's only been, way later that I learned all that stuff, that he was with the Beach Boys and all of those records and the Sinatra records and all of the Wall of Sound records and stuff that he was on.
All that Wrecking Crew stuff he was playing on. It's just unbelievable.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
We'll talk about Tommy Dodd and Timeless Highway a little bit later, but one of the things I cherish the most is that we got the opportunity to do a show with Glenn Campbell one time years ago, and it was unbelievable. Just listening to those songs and those songs that he wrote with Jimmy Webb, and I mean, it's just, I bet we've said it 1,000 times, but Wichita Lineman is as close to a perfect song as there ever will be.
That's the best line that's ever been in a song, is that line in the, and I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time. This is the best line ever in a song.
It is. While this just incredible descending chord harmonies going on at the same time, it's just, it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. So if you're watching the Glenn Campbell, were you a Roy Clark guy? Did you like Roy Clark?
I liked Roy Clark. I learned his Malagueña that he did on his electric guitar. I learned that and played it in a talent show out in Riverside. That was fun. I married that with Born Free.
Really?
My mom we put together medleys. I have no idea how it worked, but I got second place in A Stars of Tomorrow. Yeah. Anyway.
Nice. But
yeah, I was a Roy Clark fan. He was more flash than he played lead and sang, where Glenn was like a performer. He could just sit and play. And I'm absolutely sure Roy could do it, but it didn't connect with me the same way.
Yeah. Were you hearing all kinds of music at your house when you were growing up? Did you, or were you
not a ton?
You were kind of picking it up on your own. Did you? I mean, I know. You were talking about Chicago and some of those records. I mean, those huge bands. What did you? Were you listening to Glenn Campbell? I know James Taylor. You were getting into all that stuff. Were you? Is that when you were in California, or had you moved already?
It started in California.
Yeah.
It started there, but then after California, that's when we went to Mississippi, and that's when my dad came back. Oh, that's right. That's when he came back from Thailand. We did a stint in Denver, and then he came back from Thailand with stereo equipment that he'd bought in Hong Kong.
Really?
And and then that was a huge step up from the TV speaker, and and we had real stereo then, and that's when it took off for me, because we only had one in the house, but then I started kind of putting together my own with the crappy leftover stuff that we didn't need, And I joined the Columbia Record Club.
Oh, yes.
And I got my first 13 albums for 1 penny. And I got Chicago Live at Carnegie Hall, and that was the first one I started studying, with a bunch of other Three Dog Night and Doobie Brothers stuff, and I don't even remember what else. That's the one that stuck with me, was the Chicago at Carnegie Hall. And I wasn't even really a Chicago fan before that. I had never heard their studio stuff. I went straight into their live stuff.
Man, what a band. I mean, they changed the game for everyone, I think.
Oh,
I mean,
for everyone.
all those horn bands, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Chicago, Tower of Power. I mean, all those bands. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they were just the total package, though. And,
yeah. And they did it different than the other guys did. I mean, I don't know. I never got into Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I liked their radio songs, but something about Chicago was like, there was a lot more going on to me.
Well, to have this horn section that just can play all of that, and then you have someone like Terry Kath, who just, come on, he does not get the credit he deserves as a guitar player, as far as I'm concerned.
He's starting to. That's what's the crazy part,
yeah.
is that when you hear people talk now, he gets mentioned with the greats who left too soon, kind of a deal.
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't it Hendrix that said, when people talking to him about how great he was, he said, "No, there's this guy Terry Kath. He's the greatest."
He's the greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's great. Well, I know you're also you're a great keyboard player. You're going to say you're not, but you are.
No.
When did you just kind of pick that up along the way, or did you take some lessons on piano?
No, I never. Well, I mean, I had to learn. I had to in theory classes. I had to know my way around on it, but I never took piano lessons. Crazy stuff. I'll finish the story in a minute, but I remember I saw the movie Born Free, and it was the who did the soundtrack? I can't remember. Was it Roger Williams was playing the piano or something? And I went and bought the sheet music and just sat and picked it out, because I knew how to read music. So I just sat and picked it. We always had a piano around the house, and because my mom played piano by ear, she could only play in the key of C. She played everything that she knew in the key of C, but she could play a ton of stuff. And I read the music and I picked it out two-handed to play that. And then in high school, I ended up accompanying a couple other people on piano for some live things and stuff like that. But no, I'll tell you this will embarrass you. I remember I've always had keyboards around, and I've always used them to record with, and I got on the whole MIDI thing, and it's like, yeah, I could get around on it. And then you and I did the art weekend, or the art week or something at Wesleyan, after I'd known you a couple of years. And you sat down and started playing piano, and I said, oh, shit, no, I'm never doing that anymore.
Oh,
I said, no, that's that's okay. He knows really how to play. I'm going to quit talking about my keyboard
gosh
for the rest of my life.
Wow, I man, I feel very flattered, but very man, Steve, there must have been a CD or something playing in the background.
No. I know the difference, dude. Believe me. That's why I don't do it in front of people.
Oh, well, I've heard you play. We were at a gig somewhere one time, and I remember you sitting down and playing, and I was like, man, you just have a great feel. I mean, so much of it's feel, right? I mean,
it's a feel. It's
you have it. You have the feel, just like you do on guitar. You have a great feel about it, and it always comes across. Your personality it comes across in the way you play. So, yeah.
Well, thank you.
So, when did you start playing with other people? Did you join any bands or anything in school?
Well, my first band was in California. We had I played guitar. We had a flute player and a bongo player.
Nice.
And then I think we added a bass player, and I think we played the Mission Impossible theme, and because it had that, and played a few different songs. Our only gig was for my sister's birthday, and but my first real band was in high school. I had I was working in a Christian gospel band through the church with some friends, and then I started a band in high school in San Antonio, and I mean, always biting off more than I could chew. But it's all we played was Chicago and Doobie Brothers.
Wow.
And so this was a very large band. We didn't gig and make any money. We had 5 horns, 2 drummers, bass, keys, guitar, and percussions. And we did a couple concerts at school and a couple of like state fair things or whatever. But I mean, we could never make any money, and we had to steal the bass player. We had to steal the black bass player from another school because nobody was funky enough in our school to do Tyran Porter parts.
Not many people ever have been, man. I'm telling you.
But that was where the band thing started with me.
So you're playing like rhythm and lead guitar and singing in that band?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Man, were you the lead singer in that band?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
But 4 of us sang. So I mean, we really covered everything. And I remember I bought the Chicago The Complete Works. Have you ever seen that? It's all their sheet music in a book written out, separated for different parts.
Really, like almost like in score form.
In score form, you had a master score, and then you had like trumpet, sax,
wow.
every part.
Well, that makes things easier for bands that want to learn it.
Yeah, because we could all read. We were all in band or choir or whatever, so we could all read. Our 2 drummers were the 2 drum majors at the high school. They were best friends and totally different kinds of drummers, which was really fun.
That's so much fun.
It was great.
Were there any recordings done and oh man, that's too bad.
No. I have a picture someplace of us on stage. I've seen it. I know it's there, but I haven't been able to find it in years.
What was the name of the band?
Illinois Central.
Oh, nice.
That's the railroad that ran through Biloxi.
Really? And then the line in Long Train Running, which is really kind of a double meaning there. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you go to college, and I know somewhere along the way you got a gig playing in a show band, right?
Yeah, that was after I left Texas. And I moved out to Atlanta, where my parents had been for a few years. I moved out here, and I was here and went to a bunch of music stores and found a card up on the bulletin board, which they used to do. I don't know if they do anymore, for an agency that was looking for a guitar player singer for a band. And I called them up and answered it. And it was a band that was actually out of Long Island, but their agent was in Atlanta. And they said, well, send us a tape. And so I gathered some stuff from some old recordings. I'd been doing some studio work, jingle work, and working for a couple other Christian artists and stuff in Texas, where we had worked in a studio in Austin and a studio in San Antonio. And so I had some cassettes of different things. And so I made it like a 6-minute thing and sent it to the agent, and he sent it to them. They were in New Orleans at the time, and I got a call. I don't know. I think I, overnighted it or something like that. And I got a call within just a day or two and said, "Are you the one singing the high part on Carry On My Wayward Son?" And I said, "Yeah, that was me." And they go, "Okay, well, we'll meet you in Pensacola. And we'll get you a plane ticket. You come to Pensacola and do a tryout with us." And they were in New Orleans, and I met them in Pensacola. And they were all, New Jersey, New York boys. And that was a culture shock.
I imagine you received quite an education.
I received quite an education in all sorts of ways.
Wow. So what was the name of that?
And I did that for 5 years.
5 years?
Justice. Yeah, Justice. Justus.
So were you doing the same thing, rhythm and lead guitar, and then?
Mm-hmm. Oh, goodness! I saw the other day posted on Facebook a picture there was the last promo picture before I joined and the new bass player joined, Sal something or other. But the guy who I was taking his place, he looked like Gino Vanelli. I mean, and he was a total rock guitar player. And he quit to go work with El Martino as his personal, like, it was going to be his mentor after that. So,
really?
I mean, yeah, he was really serious. And I had my homemade fuzz box and a yellow plastic wah-wah pedal. I mean, I felt pretty silly, but I got the gig. So
what how many pieces was that band?
That was drums, bass, keys, me, the lead singer, and 2 horn players. Okay. So that's 7-piece. And then we had our permanent sound and lighting man.
Really?
Yeah.
So where were you? Did you play all over the U.S. in that band?
Played everywhere east of Minneapolis, Memphis, New Orleans. Okay. Never went west there. But we played, and we would play in the north in the winter and the south in the summer because the money was better because nobody else wanted to do it.
Yeah. Corporate, like trade shows and that kind of stuff?
Now, we did a couple of trade shows. Mostly it was Holiday Inns. Mostly it was hotels.
Okay.
Hotel lounges, that was the big thing back then. You know, you go to the Holiday Inn in Elkhart, Indiana, that has the Holodome, and then they've got a club attached, and they got a stage, and we would do floor shows and dance sets 5 nights a week.
Really? That's
in outfits.
Oh,
polyester one-piece outfits in red and white.
Man, Steve, I there have to be some photos of that somewhere.
I have some photos, dude. I do. Hey, I had hair then too. It was exciting.
Oh man! So, if you had to quantify some of the things you learned in that experience, how would you describe the way you went into that band as a musician and then the way you left? What did you feel a lot better?
Oh, yeah. That was the biggest, aside from that lady teacher in California, that was the biggest education I had in being on stage. The front man of that band was and still is very, very active. He plays in Italy and New York and cruise ships, and he's still very, very active doing it. But he had a voice like Larry Graham, a kind of a deep voice, but he could do anything, and he was a consummate frontman. And I learned very, very quickly, and the band learned too, that I was not going to be the wild lead soloist. I could play rhythm, and I could play funk, and we did a lot of that. But I wasn't going to be the big lead guitarist. I mean, we did a couple of things where I had to do some REO Speedwagon thing on a 50-foot chord and do some licks and stuff, but I never was that guy. So the education that I got was kind of taken over as dual frontman. And we kind of started working as a team out front rather than just one guy. And that's where comedy and performing and all that kind of stuff came in. He's the one that taught me. He said, don't think of what to say. Just say the first thing that's on your mind and go with it.
That's great.
That was one of the greatest things that I ever got taught. Just say first thing comes to your brain, talk it. You can get in trouble sometimes, but you can get out of it too. So.
Yeah, and then you're not going to sit there and overthink it. You're just going to do it, you know?
Yeah.
No, that's great.
It was a wonderful education. It really was. And the grind, I mean, like 50 weeks a year.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, and I'm sure you're playing on the bandstand with a bunch of great players, great singers.
Great players, yeah.
And then you're just doing it night after night, hour after hour. You're going to get better and better, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was a tremendous time of growth for me, yeah.
Yeah. What years would that have been?
It's at the end. I played, my first gig was just before New Year's 1980, and then I quit just the end of 85.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So after you stopped playing with them, you were living in Atlanta at that point?
I moved to Atlanta and started playing some solo gigs where I could find them. Excuse me. and then got a girl singing partner and started doing duo stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, I know you've did some projects along that way.
Mm-hmm.
I know at some point you were playing in a band. I'm fast forwarding a lot here, so I apologize.
That's fine.
But I know you were playing with a band, some great players, Three-Way Street players and singers, and this would have been around what year did you start playing? Did that band start playing?
That's going to be around 2002, probably.
Okay.
I'm terrible with dates. I have to put it around who I was married to at the time, and believe me, they'll tell you I don't remember those dates either. So. But it had to have been before that because I played with them for a long time. We did that for about 11 years.
How did you meet David Ellis? I was playing at the original Houks down on Johnson Ferry, and I was doing Sundays there, solos and duos, and I had a little trio at that time. And we started doing this thing, Steve and Friends, where I would just invite a bunch of friends that I knew. And then we kind of got a band going together because of that. And our regular fiddle player, Tony Duck, couldn't make one of the gigs. And he said, well, call my friend. He could probably do it. And that's when I met David Ellis, and he showed up in his black Stetson and his Western shirt and pressed jeans and everything, and played fiddle. And that's when I met him, was just at a gig. No kidding.
Yeah, he was a sub. And then we kept going as a country band. We kept both of them after that.
That's right, because you also had a band, Wichita. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, none of these bands shook the world, but we played, around Atlanta a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Met a lot of people because
I can't believe I never heard you at Houks. I used to go there from time to time and listen, we'd go here like Mike Veal or people play there, and I played there.
Well, they were the names there. It was Mike Veal and Banks and Shane were the names there. But
that's right.
But I think we ended up playing there more, but just they didn't have to charge cover charge when we were playing. Yeah.
So I think this is as good of a time as any to fast forward to September 10th, 2011.
Oh, wow.
September 10th, 2011. That's the date.
That is further back than I thought.
Yeah, I looked it up, and I was like, well, let's see if I can find. And it said Timeless Highway gig in Rome, Georgia. And I think I put in parentheses TBD because I had no idea. It was so last minute. I didn't even know what to put on the calendar. Well, and y'all were playing
Yellow Daisy Festival that morning. Right. Or that noon, I think.
So I was playing in a band called Timeless Highway, and I played in that band for a long time with our buddy Tommy Dodd, who unfortunately is no longer with us, but he is and always will be just a staple of music and steel guitar and not just Atlanta or the Southeast, but everywhere. I mean, everyone who knows about steel guitar knows about Tommy Dodd. And, just like you were talking about playing in that show band, that's the same way I feel about playing with those guys, and that I just got a music education every single time I played with them. I was a lot younger than them, and they had all played for a living. I wish I could go back and tell my younger self how lucky I was to get the opportunity to play with people like that. Mm-hmm. Because I knew I was lucky, but I don't think I knew to the extent that I was. So all of that to say, I was playing with Timeless Highway. We were playing a lot back around that time.
Oh, yeah.
We did a lot of the radio promotions for Kicks and Eagle, the two country stations at the time in Atlanta. We had played a gig on the afternoon of the 10th at the Yellow Daisy Festival. And did you get called, or were you doing the ceremony music for that wedding?
David and I were doing the ceremony music, and it was for a friend of a friend. It was for Natalie's best friend, Natalie Fuller at the time, her best friend, and I don't remember how last minute it was, but it was within a week of the wedding that Natalie called me and said, Kelly's band bailed on him for the reception. Do you know a band, or can you put together a band, blah, blah. And at the time I thought, there's no way I could get something together to play for 3 hours for this, because my people had just kind of scattered. And but I knew Tommy, and I wish that I remembered how I met Tommy, but he had actually come and sat in with a couple of my different groups, and he would come and sit in with me at some of my solo gigs. Some of the most memorable nights I ever had playing solo was me on acoustic guitar and him on the steel, and we'd play, and people just amazed by it. But I knew he had Timeless Highway, and I had never heard y'all, but I knew all about you. And so I called him up and I said, hey, this wedding gig lost their band. I said, I am not responsible for this, but, it pays money, and do you want to do it? And they want a country band. And y'all were the only real country band that I knew. But Tommy was the only one I knew.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we're playing Yellow Daisy Festival. And I said, they won't care.
Yeah,
they won't care what time you get there.
Yeah, so we played and, made that very short drive from Stone Mountain to Rome, Georgia.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. And the one thing Tommy said, he said, well, yeah, we'll do it. But, how about you play with us? You hang and you play with us. That was the deal. And I said, well, Tommy, I would love to play with your band, but, hey, I'm sure y'all are fine. He goes, no, you play with us. Because he and I played together enough. So that was the setup.
Yeah. And so we roll in and quickly set up. Quickly set up because this was, I believe people were starting to arrive for the wedding. It couldn't have,
yeah. Yeah, you were setting up during the wedding.
Yeah. And so we're going to do a quick sound check. We would always play But for the Grace of God as a sound check tune. That was kind of the thing. And I think we may have quickly discussed that you knew that tune as well. So we started playing it. And dude, when we got to the chorus, I was just like, where have you been my whole life?
Well, and I thought about this too. Is that, forever after that, when we started working together, when we would do that, I would always sing the high part, but your guitar player, he sang the high part.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, that's already taken. I better sing the low part. And all of a sudden, it was just this beautiful 3-part harmony that sounded like we'd all sung together forever.
Yeah.
And the thing that struck me was that no matter what you did, I understood what you did. Your phrasing was like, it wasn't exactly like the record, but it was like a singer. And it was like, I understand that. And I can breathe with that. I can sing with that. And that was, we were halfway through the chorus and we're doing.
We're looking at each other like, okay. I know. No, it's like the Mutual Admiration Society from
absolutely.
The very beginning.
Just thunderstruck, yeah.
But for the grace of God, go I must have been more lucky guy. And only knows how I've been blessed with the gift of your love. I look around and all I see is your happiness embracing me. Lord, I'd be lost but for the grace of God.
Well, it's, and after hearing, and I knew a lot about you coming up as a musician, but I didn't know the full story of it. And hearing, I think so much of your formative years as a musician, they're very similar to mine. And being in a school music program, there's a lot of value in that. It was one of those things where we spent the whole night playing and having fun, and then at the end of it, I'm just like, well, we're going to have to find some more ways to play some music with each other.
Yeah. And I remember coming home from that night and having a talk and saying, we're 20 some odd years apart and we think exactly alike. And it's like, how does that happen?
How does that happen? Yeah. So, I think some time went by and then we started doing some duo, I think the first duo gig we played together was a a corporate duo gig, if I'm
It
not
was.
mistaken.
It was. It was down in that. Is in Kennesaw.
Yes.
Kennesaw, down off of whatever Barrett Parkway, at that office building where we played down by the creek and all that kind of thing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I will tell you now, and I'd played with a bunch of people and had done a lot of cool stuff. I guess I thought a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
I was completely a nervous wreck going into that gig because I did not want to screw up, because I just had so much complete respect for you as a musician and just thought, man, don't show up and blow it. And I was worried to death about knowing your tunes, and I still feel like I played like garbage that day, but I was mesmerized with what you did and how you did it.
Well, we played that one, and then I think just a few days later we played that one over in front of the noisy building with the Transamerica, with the food trucks being right there. We set up kind of in front of a door or something. It was horrible, but I just remember the first day. I mean, I felt the same way, except I knew I was looking forward to it. And it was like, hey, this is my gig. They like whatever I do, so that's fine. It'll be fine. But I just remember it's like the 2 hours they were gone like that. Yeah. And then the horrible gig where we couldn't hardly hear anything. We're just singing and laughing and just having a great time.
That's it.
And it was like, no, this. And then it was like, anything we can possibly do, I want to do.
That's it. That's the way I felt too. That's what it became. And anything that we could do under the sun after that, we did. Whether it would be duo gigs or trio gigs or full band things.
Throw together a band and anything,
Throw together things and done a lot of cool stuff. But man, I got to tell you, just sitting it together at just the two of us playing at like Montana's, where you have a room full of people that care about what you're doing and they support you, and it's just been awesome. Yeah. It's been a big hole in my life since y'all decided to move on to new territories. Yeah, I know. I miss it too. I miss leaving feeling inspired. That's really what it was. It was like just going and you would always play something and I'm like, where in the world did that come from, Steve? I mean, we would always play like Shower the People. That was always such a fun tune. And and right now I'm going to say it in the past tense, but the songs that we still play, like Shower the People.
There you go.
And every time you would play this intro to it, and I'm like, well, okay, there's more amazing stuff I've never heard you play. It's just, you just.
Okay, I'll tell you what that my feeling about it is. I don't think you and I ever had a competitive gig in our life.
No.
But we always, and it's never happened this way with anybody else. And so, however this sounds or whatever. But I always, and I know you felt the same way in just different ways, I always wanted to, impress is not the right word, but inspire or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like I always wanted to do something that would make your musical time more interesting. And it was an inspiration, and there was always just something about it. Even the worst gigs the worst, most boring gigs, we just find a way to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it was never competitive. I'm never gonna I'm gonna show him.
Right.
It was like
that's exactly it. And
it was like how can you mesh better? That kind of thing.
And look, there are moments where musicians are in a situation like that where it's a little bit of this weird competitive thing, and I know exactly what you mean. It was never that way. I wanted to play something and you'd be like, if I played something or sang something and you looked over at me and you were like, yeah, man, that was like worth it all, Oh,
I remember them specifically. I remember the licks that you would throw in. It's like, wow, that's off the record lick, and nobody plays that. And it's like, wow, that was cool, Yeah. Oh, I remember.
Yeah,
And
well,
then you'd play things that I'd pick up on, and then we'd play them the same from then on, or the other way around.
yeah.
Just kind of like those were our inside jokes that we just would always do.
That's exactly right. No, that is exactly right. And and I will tell you this too. Your playing and your singing are second to none. But it's also very easy to play and sing and feel inspired when the sound on the stage is perfection, and you are a master of getting things sounding the way that they're supposed to. And that's something that a lot of players, a lot of bands, they don't focus as much attention on as they should. And it's fantastic stuff, man.
Well, that's nice of you to say, and that's actually kind of surprising, but I appreciate that because it's always just been something that I always carry around way more stuff than I should, and it's always a lot more work than it should be. But it's like I want it to sound good to us and to them, and anything I can do to make it easier on everybody. Plus, it's just more fun too. So I don't know.
Well, and I was doing
I've had a lot of practice at that part of it. Believe me.
And I'll tell you, I worked at a private school for a long time doing a lot of audio video stuff, and there was me as an audio person before I met Steve Ward, and then there was me as an audio person after I met Steve Ward. It opened up my ears to a whole new world after I started.
See, but that's what I think about you. That's what I think about you, because you're always so much more knowledgeable about it than I am. I would do a seat of the pants thing, and then figure it out later.
Well,
what did I do? Oh, okay.
Oh, that's great. Well, you're stinking great at it, dude. You really are. So what all are you doing now? I know you're getting to play some great music now. You've got a pretty happening little band going right now.
Yeah, I'm excited about this girl. Well, Wes, and Wes and I've been doing the bulk of my duo work for the past couple of years after you left. And that's more than a couple of years now. But he kind of became the other part of that. But I met this girl, Heavenly Brousseau, and she was a server at one of the restaurants I was playing. And she can write and she can sing, and she's 25 years old and crazy as can be. And we are having a really exciting time. Played a couple of big things and a few small things, and hoping to have something really going by the springtime with a full band. So,
man, that's awesome. And I'm sure that, getting to, play with someone that just brings a whole new energy is a really just an amazing thing, and you probably are feeling really inspired, which is fantastic.
Well, I've always, several different times I've had really great female singers to work with, and some girls that I learned so much stuff from, and music wise, and then I went for the longest time not working with a female, and it's like I miss half the great music that's out there. And then all of a sudden, this kind of comes along now. And even as young as she is, she's really knowledgeable about 70s music and some of the stuff that she left from her parents and things. And I'm constantly surprised. I say, do you know this song? Yeah, let's do Black Velvet. And it's like, you know that song? Okay, let's do it. Let's do a Melissa Etheridge tune. Let's do it. Come on.
Oh, that's great.
And then she'll turn around and just kill an Adele tune. I mean, with the power and everything that she can do it. And so we're having fun. We're having a good time.
Having that wide variety of material, just the sky's the limit on what you can play and where you can play it, right? Because, people want to go out and hear stuff that they don't normally get to hear.
Yeah. And plus she's a great writer.
Oh man, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I hope to get to play some bass guitar next to all of that greatness at some point.
That slot is still completely open, believe me.
Well, that's awesome. I know you're doing some live. You continue to do live sound stuff, right? You have a regular. We work at a church regularly, right? Mm-hmm. Running front of house, and then are you mixing audio for their live stream? Mm-hmm. And you've sent me some samples of that, and it is about as good of live stream as I've heard. Which reminds me, I do want to say this for the record while we're doing this today. Speaking of live streams, at the end of my journey in life, when I look back on the time I spent playing music, I will certainly remember those weeks during COVID when we would play these live streams at Wesleyan. And it was like we would just kind of put together a different thing. It would be a trio or a 4-piece or a 2-piece, or every week was a thing, And then the last one we did, it
was amazing.
We sat in your RV the next day and listened to some of it, and I'm not ashamed to admit I stood there and cried like a baby because it was magical. It was magical. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. It was just all the effort and the work you put into that to make it happen. Man, I hope you know how much I appreciate you doing that.
I do, but that was one of the high points of my musical life, believe that day.
It was unbelievable. I actually went back and watched some of it. I hate watching or hearing myself.
I was just going to say, you can't stand to do that.
I hate it. But I did listen to some of it because I just wanted to experience it, having been removed from it for a little while. And it was just as good as I remember it being. Just everyone that showed up, and then just the wide variety of players and singers, and it was really cool, man.
And nobody out there trying to compete with each other.
No.
Not a single competable bone was there.
Yeah.
It was amazing. But I think there were 17 of us.
Yeah.
And you get 17 musicians in a room to play all day and kind of take their different places, and somebody's going to come out, bare knuckle, but there was none of it. It was amazing.
In our living room, we have a nice sitting area with a turntable where we'll sit and put some vinyl on, and sitting on top of that is the group photo from that night that I walk by it every single day and look at that and like, man, that's just that's a night. Yeah, I'll remember it forever. That was just something else. It was something
special.
else. It really was special. So, well, Steve, I've taken up too much of your time. I could sit here and do this for the rest of the day, but we're gonna call this part 1 of this conversation, because I think sometime we're going to come back together and we're going to try to remember all the great ideas we had about music that we would talk about on gigs, that we said, we need to write this stuff down and talk about it someday, because And
now you've got the vehicle.
That's it.
You've got the vehicle. You need to pass it on now, brother.
That's it. Well, brother, I love you to death. I just can't thank you enough for just spending some time telling everyone your story. I think you have a lot of fans in the world, a lot of people that respect you and love you as a musician, as a human being. And I think them having a glimpse of you, knowing your story and how you got to where you are, I think it's just going to be a cool thing for people to check out. So I appreciate you taking the time today to do this.
Well, I appreciate you, my brother, and I miss you, and I love you forever.
I feel the same way, and we'll do it again soon, man.
All right, my brother.